The great city of Carrion was alive with color, sound, and movement. Banners of many nations hung from the tall crystal towers, each one fluttering in the warm wind that swept across the wide marble streets. Drums rolled in steady rhythm, and horns announced the beginning of the royal procession. People from across the galaxy had come to witness this rare ceremony. For today, the rulers of two species, humanity and the proud alien race known as the Veyari, would walk together in public for the first time. At the center of this event was Queen Selah of the Veyari, a tall and graceful figure dressed in flowing robes of silver and deep blue. Her skin shimmered faintly under the twin suns, marked with faint glowing lines that pulsed like living starlight. To her people, she was more than a queen. She was the living symbol of their culture, the guardian of tradition, and the one who carried the burden of guiding them through a galaxy filled with rivals and threats. Walking among her honor guard was a man very different from the Veyari. His name was Elias Ward, a human soldier chosen to represent Earth in this delicate mission. Compared to the tall, elegant Veyari guards, he looked plain, broad-shouldered, armored in simple matte steel, his short brown hair cropped in military style. He carried no banner, no symbol of nobility. He was there only as a protector, silent and watchful. Elias kept his eyes scanning the rooftops, the crowds, and the shadows. His training told him to trust nothing in situations like this. Ceremonies, parades, speeches, these were perfect times for assassins to strike. The enemy always preferred the moment when a leader seemed safest. He had learned that the hard way on distant colonies, where 1 second of distraction could end dozens of lives. The Queen moved gracefully beside him, her voice calm as she spoke to her closest advisors. She did not look at Elias, but she was aware of his presence. Out of the corner of her vision, she noted how different the human was from her people. Heavy steps, cautious movements, a quiet readiness. She had been told humans were brave, sometimes reckless, and that their instinct to protect was both their strength and their weakness. The streets roared with cheers as the royal carriage rolled forward. Children waved flags. Musicians played alien instruments that filled the air with bright tones. Yet beneath the music and laughter, Elias heard something else, a faint whistle almost lost in the noise. His eyes snapped upward. On the rooftop of a tall building, a glint of metal caught the sun. In that instant, Elias did not think. He acted. His body lunged forward, his shield arm rising just as a black shaft streaked through the air. The arrow struck with a sharp crack, glancing off the edge of his shield before slicing across his forearm. A searing pain ripped through his flesh as the strange poison burned its way into his veins. The crowd screamed. The music cut off. Guards shouted in confusion, rushing toward the source of the attack. Elias gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay upright. His vision blurred for a moment as the venom spread, but he planted his boots and raised his weapon. His eyes locked on the figure pulling back a second arrow on the rooftop. Up there, Elias roared, pointing with his sword. His voice carried above the chaos. The Veyari guards spun, finally spotting the assassin. A squad of them launched into the air using their winged harnesses, their spears glowing as they soared toward the rooftop. The second arrow never flew. The assassin was tackled by 2 armored guards, disappearing in a flash of sparks and shattered tiles. All around, panic threatened to take hold of the crowd. People pushed and shoved, trying to flee the square. Merchants overturned stalls, children cried, and soldiers scrambled to secure the area. In the middle of it all, Queen Selah stood motionless, her glowing lines pulsing brighter in alarm. Her advisors shouted at her to retreat to safety, but her gaze was fixed on Elias, the human who had thrown himself between her and death. Blood dripped from his arm, the wound darkening unnaturally as the poison spread. Yet Elias did not fall. He pressed his arm against his armor to slow the bleeding, his other hand gripping his sword tightly. His eyes scanned the rooftops again, ready for another attack. Only when he was certain the danger had passed did he allow himself to relax slightly. His breathing was heavy, his skin pale. Still, he straightened his shoulders and turned toward the Queen. "Are you unharmed, Your Majesty?" he asked, his voice rough but steady. For a long moment, Selah simply stared at him. She had known humans were protective, but she had not expected this. The arrow had been poisoned, designed to kill her instantly. Yet this man who owed her nothing had stepped into its path without hesitation. "I am safe," she said at last, her voice quiet but strong. "Because of you." Her advisors rushed her toward the safety of the carriage, but Sayla raised a hand, stopping them. Instead, she moved closer to Elias, her eyes narrowing as she examined the wound. The strange black veins spreading from the cut were a clear sign of the assassin's poison. "Take him to the healers," she commanded. Her voice rang with authority that silenced everyone around her. "Now!" 2 guards moved to assist Elias, but he waved them away. "I can walk," he muttered. His legs trembled beneath him, but he refused to show weakness. He had been taught that in moments like this, strength mattered more than comfort. Sayla studied him as he moved beside her, step by step toward the palace gates. Around them, the city still buzzed with fear, but the Queen's calm presence and the human's unbroken stance steadied the crowd. People whispered as they watched, about the assassin, about the poison, but most of all about the strange human who had saved their queen. By the time they reached the palace, Elias's vision had narrowed to a tunnel of shadows. The healers rushed forward, their glowing hands already preparing the antidote. He felt himself being lowered onto a smooth table, voices echoing around him. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Queen Sayla standing near, her bright eyes fixed on him, not with the cold gaze of royalty, but with something far more human. The royal palace of Carrion was a fortress of shining glass and stone, a place where light poured through tall windows and reflections danced across polished floors. Inside one of the healing chambers, the air smelled of strange herbs, sharp like mint yet sweet like fruit. Blue crystal lamps pulsed gently, filling the room with a calm glow. On a wide bed lay Elias Ward, the human soldier who had saved Queen Sayla from death. His arm was wrapped in thin layers of silver cloth that shimmered faintly, a healing weave of Veyari design. The poison had spread deep, burning through his veins, but the healers worked tirelessly around him. Their hands glowed as they chanted in soft voices, drawing energy through their strange tools, part science, part art. Elias stirred slightly, his face pale. The pain was constant, like fire in his blood, but he did not cry out. His soldier's training told him to endure, to let the healers do their work. Even so, he could not shake the memory of the poisoned arrow, the chaos in the square, and the sight of the Queen's eyes looking at him as though she had never seen a human before. The chamber door opened with a soft chime. Every healer paused, bowing deeply as Queen Sayla entered. She wore a robe of quiet colors now, far different from the ceremonial silver and blue she had worn earlier. The glowing lines along her skin pulsed faintly, matching the calm but steady rhythm of her heart. "Leave us," Sayla said gently. The healers hesitated. "Your Majesty, the treatment is not yet finished." "The human—" "I will watch over him," Sayla interrupted. Her voice carried authority that allowed no debate. Slowly, the healers bowed and filed out of the chamber. The door closed and silence settled in the room, broken only by Elias's slow breathing. For a moment, Sayla simply stood there, her gaze fixed on him. She had seen warriors bleed for her before. She had seen loyal guards fall in battle, but none had ever stood between her and a death arrow with such instinctive certainty. Humans were strange creatures, she thought, brave to the point of madness. She moved closer, standing at his bedside. "Elias Ward," she said softly, testing his name. His eyes opened slowly. They were heavy but still sharp. He tried to sit up, but the burning in his veins forced him back down. "Your Majesty," he rasped, his voice hoarse. "Forgive me. I failed to stop the arrow completely." Sayla's brows rose in surprise. "Failed? You saved my life. You saw what no one else did, and you acted faster than any of my own guards. That is not failure." Elias shook his head slightly. "It was my duty. Nothing more." "Duty," Sayla repeated, almost tasting the word. "Is that what drives humans to such reckless courage?" "Sometimes," Elias replied weakly. "Other times, it's instinct. You don't think, you just move. When danger comes, someone has to step forward. I was closest. That's all." Sayla studied him in silence. There was no pride in his words, no demand for reward. He spoke simply, like someone describing the weather. Yet she could see in his eyes that he had faced death before, perhaps many times. "You speak as though your life is nothing," she said quietly, "but your blood burns with poison now because of me. Do you not value your own survival?" Elias let out a faint breath that might have been a laugh. "Of course I value it. But in that moment it didn't matter. You're a queen. Losing you would have meant chaos, war, maybe worse. Losing me, I'm just one soldier. Easy to replace." Sayla's glowing lines flickered, betraying her unease. Do you truly believe that? Yes, Elias said simply. That's what soldiers believe. For a long time, the Queen said nothing. She had been raised in a world of duty and tradition, where every life carried weight and every action echoed through the future. Yet here was a man who valued his own existence so little compared to hers. It unsettled her, but it also fascinated her. She sat in the chair beside his bed, folding her hands in her lap. You will recover, she said firmly. My healers are skilled. The poison is strong, but they are stronger. Still, I wish to understand. Why do humans act without thought? Why do you throw yourselves into danger when logic says you should hesitate? Elias's eyes closed briefly as exhaustion washed over him. Because sometimes hesitation means someone else dies. Better me than the one I'm supposed to protect. That's all. Sayla leaned back, her thoughts deep. Better me. Such words were not common among the Veyari, whose nobility guarded their own lives with shields of tradition and law. Humans seemed to live by another rule, an unspoken code that no law could enforce. The chamber was quiet again. Outside the city buzzed with rumors. Nobles whispered about the failed assassination, debating whether humans had staged it, or whether rival factions within the Veyari had plotted the Queen's death. Trust was fragile and suspicion spread like smoke. But here in this chamber, two figures sat in silence, one human, one alien, bound together by a single act of courage. Hours passed. Elias drifted in and out of sleep, his body fighting the poison. Each time he woke, Sayla was there watching. Sometimes she asked questions about Earth, about human wars, about why soldiers chose such a hard life. Elias answered simply, never boasting, never complaining. At one point she asked, do humans fear death? Elias opened his eyes and met hers. Of course we do. Fear keeps us alive, but sometimes what we protect is worth more than our fear. The words lingered in the air like a promise. By nightfall, the healers returned, bowing again as they entered. They worked quickly, applying new salves and drawing out the last of the poison with glowing crystals. Elias groaned once, but his strength was returning. When the healers left again, Sayla rose to her feet. Rest now, she told him. Tomorrow I will summon you. There are things I must ask that go beyond duty. I wish to know more of the world that made you. Elias blinked at her in confusion. You honor me, Your Majesty, but I'm just a soldier. I don't know if I have the answers you seek. Sayla's lips curved in the faintest smile. You had the answer today when you stood between me and death. That is enough. With that, she turned and left the chamber, her glowing lines fading into the shadows of the hall. Elias lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. He had faced battlefields, ambushes, and fire before. But this was different. He could not shake the image of her eyes, calm yet searching, looking at him as though he carried secrets even he did not understand. Sleep finally claimed him, though his thoughts still turned to the Queen who had chosen to sit by his side. The next morning, the palace was alive with tension. Nobles argued in council chambers, accusing rivals of betrayal. Some whispered that the human had been part of the attack. Others insisted that Elias was the Queen's new favorite, a dangerous influence. Through it all, Sayla remained silent. She allowed her advisors to debate, but her decision was already made. She would summon Elias, not as a suspect, not as a pawn, but as a man who had earned her trust in a single heartbeat. She did not yet know where this path would lead, but she felt it strongly. The moment Elias Ward had thrown himself in front of that poisoned arrow, the future of two worlds had changed. The palace of Sarian looked peaceful from the outside, but inside its walls tension grew like a storm. The attempted assassination of Queen Sayla had shaken the trust of her court. The nobles whispered in the marble halls, pointing fingers, making quiet deals, and hiding secrets. What had been a day of unity between humans and Veyari was now covered with suspicion. Elias Ward, the human soldier, walked slowly through the long corridors. His arm was healed enough for him to move without pain, though faint lines of the poison still marked his skin. The Veyari healers had told him the scars would remain forever, a reminder of what he had faced. He did not mind. A scar was a soldier's memory. What worried him more was the mood of the palace. As he passed Veyari nobles in their flowing robes, he could feel their eyes on him. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with respect, but most with cold suspicion. To them, he was an outsider, a human standing too close to their queen. Elias ignored their stares. He had faced worse than whispers. Still, his instincts told him that the danger was not gone. The assassin who had loosed the poisoned arrow had not acted alone. Of that he was sure. Assassinations were never simple. Someone powerful had given the order. That thought followed him as he entered the Queen's private hall. Queen Sayla sat on a high seat carved from crystal. Her advisors gathered around her. The lines on her skin glowed faintly in the dim light. When Elias entered, all conversation stopped. Dozens of eyes turned to him. Sayla's lips curved slightly. "You came, Ilias Ward." "As you commanded, Your Majesty," Ilias replied, bowing stiffly. One of the nobles, a tall Vayari lord with golden robes, spoke sharply. "Why is this human allowed in the council chamber? He has no place here. His kind may have saved your life by accident, but he cannot advise you on matters of Vayari honor." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Elias stood silent, his face calm. He knew better than to argue. Sayla raised her hand and the voices died. "This human has seen what you did not. His eyes noticed danger before any of you. I will hear him." The golden-robed noble bowed stiffly, though anger flashed in his eyes. Sayla turned to Elias. "Tell us what you believe. Do you think the assassin acted alone?" Elias hesitated only a moment. "No, Your Majesty. Assassins do not risk their lives for nothing. Someone paid him, trained him, and gave him the poisoned arrow. Whoever it was, they are still in this city, maybe even in this palace." The council erupted in protest. "Impossible," shouted one. "A human trick," claimed another. Sayla silenced them with a single word. "Enough." Her gaze returned to Elias. "You speak with certainty. What leads you to this belief?" Elias met her eyes steadily. "I've seen attacks like this before." The arrow was coated in a poison too rare for a common killer to afford, and he waited for the perfect moment, when you were most exposed. That means he had information from inside. Someone with power wants you gone. The hall fell silent. The nobles shifted uncomfortably. No one liked to hear such words spoken aloud. Sayla leaned forward. "Then we must find this shadow." For the next hour, the council argued about possible suspects. Some blamed human enemies who feared alliance with the Vayari. Others blamed rival noble houses. But through it all, Elias kept silent, listening. His eyes studied the faces around him, watching their movements, their tones, their reactions. One thing was clear to him. Many of these nobles cared less about Sayla's safety than about their own power. After the council ended, Sayla rose and walked beside Elias through the palace gardens. The moonlight shone on the glowing flowers that lined the paths. Guards followed at a distance, but Sayla spoke only to Elias. "You saw their faces," she said quietly. "You heard their words. What do you think of them?" Elias paused before answering. "I think some want to protect you, but others, they hide too much. They fear what you and humanity together might mean for their power. To them your death is easier than change." Sayla's glowing lines pulsed faintly. "You speak boldly, human. Do you not fear what they might do to you?" Elias gave a faint smile. "Fear keeps me careful. But I'm not here for them. I'm here for you." Sayla studied him closely, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "I will trust your eyes. Watch them for me. Tell me what you see that others do not." And so Elias became more than just a guard. He began to walk the palace halls as an observer, moving quietly, listening to whispers, noticing details others ignored. Where the nobles saw a simple human soldier, he became the queen's shadow. Days passed and patterns emerged. He noticed which nobles avoided speaking of the assassination, which ones flinched when Sayla's name was praised, which servants carried messages in the night. Piece by piece, he began to see the hidden threads of conspiracy. One evening, while patrolling near the archives, Elias caught sight of a cloaked figure slipping through a side door. He followed silently, his hand near his blade. In the dim archive chamber, he saw the figure handing a scroll to another noble, the same golden-robed lord who had tried to silence him in council. Elias memorized the scene, then slipped away unseen. He knew better than to attack alone. Instead, he reported to Sayla in secret. Her eyes narrowed as she listened. "So Lord Vaynor seeks to undermine me." "More than undermine," Elias said. "He may have ordered the arrow." Sayla's glowing lines brightened with anger. "If that is true, then he has betrayed not only me but our entire people." Elias leaned closer. Then you must be careful. If you accuse him without proof, the council will turn against you. Let me find more. The queen was silent for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. You have my permission. But do not risk your life again so recklessly. Elias almost smiled at her words. I can't promise that, Your Majesty. Reckless is part of being human. For the first time that night, Selah laughed softly, the sound like wind through crystal. The days that followed were dangerous. Elias moved through the palace with caution, watching and waiting. He uncovered messages hidden in servant routes, meetings in dark corners, and quiet payments made in secret. Slowly, the shape of the conspiracy grew clearer. Lord Vaynor and his allies feared Selah's friendship with humanity. They wanted her gone before she could bind their world to Earth. Each discovery Elias brought to Selah strengthened her trust in him. She began to invite him to more councils, to walk beside her during court ceremonies, to listen when others only spoke. The nobles noticed and their suspicion deepened, but Selah no longer cared. To her, the human had proven his worth not just as a soldier, but as a guide, one who saw danger when others looked away. One night, as they stood on the palace balcony overlooking the city lights, Selah said quietly, You have given me more than protection, Elias Ward. You have given me truth. That is rarer than loyalty in this court. Elias bowed his head. Truth is a soldier's weapon, Your Majesty. Without it, we cannot win. Selah's eyes met his, and in that moment she knew. This human was unlike any being she had ever known, and perhaps because of him, her world might yet survive the shadows gathering in the court. The great council hall of the Veyari Palace was filled with light. Tall pillars of glowing crystal reached to the ceiling, and banners of royal houses hung in ordered rows. The chamber echoed with the voices of nobles, their robes bright as they argued about the future of their people. Queen Selah sat upon her high seat, calm but stern. Her glowing lines pulsed with steady rhythm, showing no sign of fear, though her mind was full of storm. For days, whispers of betrayal had grown louder. Elias Ward, the human soldier, had uncovered much: messages, bribes, secret meetings. The picture was clear. Lord Vaynor and his allies wished to end her rule before she could bring humans into alliance with the Veyari. Now, Selah had called the council not just to face their doubts, but to make a decision that would change the future of two worlds. Elias stood near her throne, armor polished, hand resting on his sword. He felt the weight of every noble's eyes on him. To them, he was out of place, a human in the heart of alien power. But he did not waver. He had seen war, and this was only another kind of battlefield. The council began with loud voices. Your Majesty, Lord Vaynor spoke, stepping forward in his golden robes. His voice was smooth but sharp. We cannot trust these humans. They bring their soldiers, their weapons, their greedy hunger for new worlds. Already one stands too close to your side. How long before they claim your throne as their own? A wave of agreement passed through some nobles. Others kept silent, their eyes flicking between Vaynor and the Queen. Elias did not move, though his jaw tightened. Selah lifted her hand and silence fell. Humans are not our enemies. They are allies if we have the wisdom to accept them. One of them saved me from death while others froze. Should I call such courage unworthy? Vaynor's eyes narrowed. One act of impulse does not prove loyalty. For all we know, the human himself arranged the attempt so he could win your favor. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Elias felt anger burn in his chest, but he stayed silent. Soldiers knew that words once spoken could never be taken back. Selah's voice rang clear. I do not believe such lies. Elias Ward risked his life without hesitation. He carries the scar of poison that was meant for me. Would a man wound himself so deeply for a trick? The hall murmured, divided. Then Selah rose from her seat. Her glowing lines blazed brighter than before, casting light across the chamber. Her voice carried like thunder. You speak of loyalty, of trust, of fear, but I will show you what courage means. Today, before all of you, I declare a bond that no poison, no arrow, no shadow can break. She turned, facing Elias directly. The hall fell into stunned silence. Every noble leaned forward, every guard froze. Elias Ward, Selah said, her eyes locked on his. You risked your life for mine. You have uncovered truths when others gave me silence. You have stood at my side, though the court scorned you. For these reasons, and for the hope of peace between our people, I ask you to stand with me. Not only as my protector, but as my chosen. I propose marriage, a union of human and Veyari, so that our worlds may share one future." The chamber exploded with sound. Nobles shouted in outrage. Some cried that it was against tradition. Others accused her of madness. A few, however, clapped their hands together. Voices lifted in support. Elias stood frozen, the queen's words striking him harder than any arrow. Marriage to a queen? His heart pounded. He had never imagined such a path. He was a soldier born to duty, not thrones. Vaynar's voice rose above the chaos. "This is an insult. A human cannot wear the crown of Veyari. He is unworthy, untested, and alien to our ways. If you do this, your majesty, you will destroy the respect of your people." Sayla's gaze turned cold. "Respect is not kept by fear or tradition alone. Respect is earned, and Elias has earned mine, as he will earn the respect of our people when they see his courage." She looked back at Elias, waiting. The hall quieted, all eyes on him. Elias felt the weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders. His mind raced. Marriage to Sayla was not only personal, it was political. It meant stepping into a world of power and danger unlike anything he had known. It meant standing at her side not only as a guard but as a partner, a symbol of unity. He thought of his scar, the burning pain of the poison. He thought of her eyes, calm but full of strength, watching him through his struggle. He thought of the whispers in the palace, the schemes of traitors, the danger still hidden in the shadows. Slowly, Elias knelt on one knee before her. His voice was low but steady. "Your Majesty, I am only a soldier. I never dreamed of such honor. I fear I may not be worthy of your throne, your people, or your trust. But I will tell you this. I will stand by your side as long as I live. If marriage is the bond that seals our alliance, then I will accept it, and I will guard not only your life, but your future." The hall erupted again, but this time the sound was mixed, anger, shock, and scattered applause. Sayla reached down and lifted him to his feet. "Then it is decided. Let the galaxy hear it. Queen Sayla of the Veyari has chosen Elias Ward, human soldier, as her consort and partner." The nobles shouted in protest, but the queen's voice drowned them out. "You call him unworthy? He has proven himself more noble than many who wear your robes. You fear change? Then fear it, for it is already here. This human has stood where you would not. He has faced what you could not. He has done what only the bravest would dare. By that measure, he is worthy." The guards struck their spears against the floor in salute, their armor ringing like thunder. The sound filled the chamber, overpowering the protests. Vaynar's face twisted with fury, but he said nothing. Elias stood at Sayla's side, his heart heavy but certain. He knew the road ahead would be full of danger, but he also knew that sometimes fate chose its own soldiers, and now fate had chosen him. That night, the palace burned with rumors. The city outside buzzed with shock. Some shouted in celebration of unity, others whispered of betrayal, but all spoke of the same thing: the queen's bold proposal and the human who had accepted it. In her private chamber, Sayla looked out at the city lights, her thoughts calm despite the storm. Elias stood near, silent. At last she spoke. "Do you regret your choice?" Elias shook his head. "No, your Majesty. I only wonder if I can bear the weight of it." Sayla turned, her glowing eyes softening. "You already bear it. You carried it the moment you stepped before the poisoned arrow. Now you will not carry it alone." Elias met her gaze. For the first time, he felt not like a soldier guarding a queen, but like a man walking beside an equal. Outside, the stars shone bright, watching silently as the future of two species was bound by a promise stronger than law or tradition, a promise born of courage. The twin suns of Sarian rose slowly over the city, bathing the palace in soft gold and pink light. The streets were quiet compared to the day before, but tension lingered in every corner. Rumors of the queen's bold proposal and the human who had accepted it had traveled fast, and reactions were mixed. Some citizens cheered, believing in a new future of unity. Others whispered doubt, fearing change and unfamiliar alliances. Inside the palace, Queen Sayla and Elias Ward prepared for a day unlike any they had faced before. Today, the threat of conspirators could no longer be ignored. Lord Vaynar and his allies had grown bold, openly plotting to challenge the Queen's rule and undo the fragile trust between humans and Veyari. Elias paced near the armory, his hands brushing over his sword and shield. Though he had accepted the Queen's proposal, He could not forget that enemies lurked in shadows waiting for one mistake to strike. He had trained for this moment. Every battle, every mission had led him to this palace and this queen. Sayla entered the room, her presence commanding even without her ceremonial robes. The soft glow of her lines pulsed with quiet strength. She stopped near Elias and placed a hand on his arm. "We must move carefully today," she said. "They will not wait long. They know we have declared our bond publicly. They will act before the people accept it fully." Elias nodded. "Then we strike first. We find them before they find us." The queen's eyes sparkled with trust and resolve. Together then, not as ruler and guard, but as partners. The palace halls, usually echoing with polite conversation and ceremonial footfalls, now felt like a battlefield. Guards moved in silent groups, checking corridors and doors, while spies sent by Vaynor attempted to slip unnoticed. Elias moved among them, his human instincts guiding him. He noticed small details. A servant's hurried steps, a whisper in the shadows, a locked door that shouldn't have been. Finally, he and Sayla reached the council chamber. The doors were closed, but movement inside suggested more than a discussion. Peeking through the glass, Elias saw Lord Vaynor and several of his allies huddled over a map. Their faces tense and urgent. "They are planning something," Elias whispered. Sayla's hand rested on his shoulder. "Then we will stop it. Quietly, without alarming the palace until we are ready." They stepped back into the shadows, moving through secret passageways that only the queen knew. The passages twisted and turned, leading down to the lower chambers where the conspirators' plan could be observed and interrupted. Elias felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. Every step was careful, every breath measured. The palace, normally a place of peace, had become a maze of danger. The conspirators did not notice them until it was too late. Elias and Sayla emerged from the shadows, catching Vaynor's men by surprise. "What is the meaning of this?" Vaynor demanded, his voice sharp. "You cannot—" Sayla raised her hand, her glowing lines flaring bright. "You cannot plot against your queen. You will answer for your betrayal." Elias stepped forward, sword ready, shield raised. "Leave them or face consequences," he said calmly. His presence was solid, steady, unyielding. The conspirators hesitated, realizing that this human was no ordinary soldier. Every strike, every maneuver in previous battles had been calculated, and now his calm presence alone was enough to make them pause. Vaynor's allies drew weapons, but the Queen's guards, prepared and determined, moved swiftly to surround them. Elias acted with precision, disabling key attackers without lethal force. His skill and courage were clear to all who watched. Finally, with the conspirators restrained and disarmed, Sayla stepped forward. "You will face trial for your actions," she said. "But know this: courage and loyalty are valued above birthright. Betrayal will not go unpunished." The conspirators lowered their heads, defeated not only by the strength of the Queen's forces, but by the skill and bravery of the human at her side. After the immediate danger had passed, the palace slowly returned to a quieter rhythm. Word spread quickly. The conspirators had been stopped, thanks to the courage and quick thinking of Elias Ward. Even those who had doubted him now watched with new respect. Sayla called him to her private chamber. She was calm, her glowing lines soft with relief. "You have done more than protect me," she said. "You have protected our future. The people now see that courage and loyalty transcend species, tradition, and fear." Elias lowered his gaze. "I only did my duty, Your Majesty. You have asked much of me, and I could not fail." Sayla stepped closer. "And yet you have not failed. You have proven yourself worthy of more than duty. You have earned trust, respect, and something more." Elias looked at her, uncertain. She smiled, a warm and gentle expression that carried promise. "The bond we share now," she continued, "is not only between us. It is a symbol for all Vayarian humans who look to the future. Your courage has reshaped the course of our worlds. Tomorrow we will celebrate not just our survival, but our unity." The next morning, the palace courtyards were alive with celebration. Citizens from all over Serion came to witness the historic union. Humans and Vayari mingled freely, curious and cautious but excited. Banners displayed the symbols of both worlds, and the air was filled with music and laughter. Elias stood beside Sayla as the ceremony began. He wore simple ceremonial armor polished to a shine, while Sayla wore a gown of silver and blue that shimmered with every step. Her glowing lines danced across her skin, a living reminder of her heritage. When the moment came, Selah turned to him. Do you, Elias Ward, accept this bond not just for yourself, but for the future of our people? Elias met her gaze, steady and unwavering. I do. I will stand by you, protect you, and honor this bond for as long as I live. The Queen smiled, and the ceremony continued. The people watched in awe as the human and Veyari Queen joined hands, a living symbol of unity. The union was more than marriage, it was hope, a promise of peace, and a challenge to those who believed that tradition could not change. As the celebration continued, Elias and Selah walked among the citizens. Children ran up to shake Elias's hand, curious about this human who had faced death for their queen. Nobles who had doubted him now nodded with respect. Even Lord Vaynor, restrained but present, watched silently, understanding that the balance of power had shifted. Selah leaned close to Elias. Your courage has done more than save my life. It has saved our people from division, and for that I am grateful beyond words. Elias shook his head. I did what I had to do. You trusted me, and that made all the difference. Together they looked toward the city skyline where the twin suns rose higher, signaling the dawn of a new era. The future was uncertain, yes, but for the first time it seemed full of promise. Two species, joined by courage, loyalty, and trust, could face any challenge. In that moment, Elias realized something profound. Being human was not just about survival or strength. It was about hope, compassion, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. And by standing beside Queen Selah, he had given not only his life but his heart to a cause far greater than himself. The palace gates opened, welcoming the new era. The city watched silently, the stars above reflecting in crystal towers. Humanity and Veyari, united by bravery and trust, were ready to face the galaxy together. And in the heart of the celebration, two figures, one human, one Veyari, stood together, ready to shape the future. For courage, when paired with loyalty, had the power to change worlds. The story of Elias Ward and Queen Selah would be remembered for generations, not as a tale of war or greed or power, but as proof that one act of bravery, one human choice could save a life, unite civilizations, and create a new dawn for all.